I need your help. So anyway.
But yes, I will, I will add that.
So that was, that was about.
Do that with other people.
We got to move. You can set up for all people. What does it do with small ones? Like, it's like goes like this. Does it? But it's not distracting. It sounds like, and they've got this little attachment you can add to the television. It's just so much music. It's great for big men.
Dixie makes it, but they got software that you can go in and you can actually just define it, so it's not, every little foot is not being picked up. And depending on which way you want the camera to, have the camera off center, such like grabbing a coat on your shoulder or something like that.
Well, that's cool.
Somebody, that one's not, I mean, that's an old one that does, that's still good. The one, you know, they're made of a big plastic.
Mhm. I've never been a fan of Tesla.
Problems.
Yeah. Been a fan of it so much.
Watching our shows.
Whiz.
I guess we kind of turned around.
So you'll just sit here. Let's
get them in here. We'll get
That's
that.
it. That's pretty darn.
So he's with the.
At least.
Yeah.
She a little short. Oh, no. She had these take out that thing for free.
So, I see.
Excuse me. So this is RTC. Y'all got it.
Ready, boys. I don't know how to do that.
At the end of the day.
Man, that's always a bit there. No.
Not every.
Were you able to pull up the eighth today and see this out? In the format that you want? It's a lot of information. It's a lot of information. Yeah, the benchmarking project. That's what I think.
Kind of a lack of that calm down, but then then that way we saw that.
Still look like you're doing it. Yeah. So you just go like this. Talking about. I think I just put it off.
Yeah, but no, it's gonna look.
That's why I see.
Let's have a thing, push on.
That's what.
I don't think I'm gonna straight out. Supposed to start. So, I'm the
I'm gonna let you fix it, but. Yeah.
There you go. It's bad. Water.
Oh, good day to be here. Turning back over to city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hope everyone had a good lunch and is ready to get back to the business. Is the sound working, online? Perfect. All right, well, we're gonna jump right to it. For the next, agenda item, we have, two visitors from the state. One is Ms. Denise Canada, the current secretary for the local government commission, also the director for the financial, division for the local government commission. And close, and she'll clear that up. And then, Ms. Sharon Emerson, who currently works for the North Carolina League of Municipalities and is director of their financial arm. But she was also a previous secretary for the local government commission a few years ago. So, Denise and Sharon, welcome to the city of Rocky Mount, and the floor is yours.
Excuse me, before we go on, Mayor Pro Tem, can we, I wish we would have started this morning with a prayer. I'm new, so if that's appropriate, I would love for us to have a prayer, because this is gonna be a session, and, we needed some unity and teamwork. So I know we have, Pastor Battle in here, or one of the council members, if he would bless us with a prayer.
Give us a prayer.
No.
You give us a prayer. You give us a prayer. Come on.
Let's pray. So I'm asking you to thank you now for this fellowship, this trio, God. And you come to get to God, use the guys. So we thank you for the facilitators and what that we'll be. Lead us and guide us now, in Jesus' name. Pray. Amen.
Amen.
And Denise, I know I stumbled a little bit over your title. Will you use the correct title for yourself?
That's all right. I'm just happy to be here. Sure, I'll introduce myself. I'm Denise Canada. I'm the secretary of the local. Talk into the mic.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit tall for somebody.
The green one too.
Okay, thanks. So I'm Denise Canada. I'm the secretary of the local government commission and also the director of the state and local government finance division at the Department of State Treasurer. So a very long title, and you can just call me Denise. I think that your discussion this morning probably made this clear. The discussions that you have had with staff recently have hopefully made this clear, but I cannot be clear enough with you that your financial situation is dire. It is very worrisome to us at Department of State Treasurer and at the Local Government Commission. So who am I and why do I care about your financial situation? I'm going to talk first about what the Local Government Commission is and why I'm here. Back in the 1930s, North Carolina and a lot of other states had local governments that were defaulting on their debt or at risk of defaulting on their debt and having other financial crises coming out of the Great Depression. And North Carolina at that time created the Local Government Commission to help provide oversight for local government finances to keep units meaning local governments, from going into bankruptcy, from defaulting on debt, and all of those sorts of issues. So we do various financial oversight. We review the annual audit when it is your annual audit, when it is submitted to our staff every year. And then you also have to get approval from the Local Government Commission for issuing certain types and certain amounts of debt as a way of keeping local governments from taking on more debt. The Local Government Commission has various authority in the state general statutes, and the one that you will often hear talked about is the one on the far right, which is the authority to impound the books and records of local government and assume full financial control of the local government. This is not something that the Local Government Commission likes to do. As the secretary of the commission, it's not something I'm particularly interested in doing, but this is certainly something that gets talked about. And so I do want you to know that that is something that the commission has the authority to do. One more thing before I move on from that one, just for those of you that aren't as familiar with the Local Government Commission, the commission is chaired by the state treasurer, Brad Briner, and has several other members as part of the commission. So the state auditor, Dave Olick, is a member of the commission. The secretary of state is a member of the commission. There are 9 members in total. And then that commission has a 40-person full-time staff. And that is the division that I run. As the secretary, I'm over the staff that work for the commission itself. So just to sort of place all the figures and help you understand where I fit in. And then where do you fit in? As the board, the state statutes place the fiduciary responsibility on you, not on your auditors, not on your staff, not on your citizens, and not on the Local Government Commission. You are elected to do this. You are elected to manage the finances and mind the books, and that duty is placed on you. And y'all are up to the task, and I know that you can do it. What I'm showing right here is something that I believe all of you have seen. These are some cash flow estimates that I received from your staff. So to be abundantly clear, these are not my calculations. These are your staff's calculations. I think I might have a pointer. I don't know if you can see it, so I have a pointer. So I just want to make sure that everyone watching understands what we're looking at right here. And to be clear, these are all estimates. So when you start up here in the top left, 32.7, oh, it's supposed to say dollars and millions. You have more than $32. You have $32.7 million. Sorry about that. You add in the amount of revenue that you expect to see come in that month. And then you subtract out the money that you expect to spend in that month. And then here is your ending cash balance. And that's what you start the next month with. Go down, up, like that. And then you can see right here at the end of July, you have run out of cash and you are in the negative. If these estimates don't come through for whatever reason, because they are just estimates, say you have a significant disaster, you need a major repair somewhere, if you have an unexpected expense, you are going to be in the red even sooner than that. Revenues don't come in the way you expect, you will be in the red even sooner than that. And if you're in the red, you cannot pay your staff. You cannot operate water and sewer for the citizens of Rocky Mount. So this is a problem that you have to solve immediately. So you have two challenges that are ahead of you. You have to deal with this cash flow issue. It's what I call your liquidity problem. You have to make changes right now, immediately, to reduce your expenses so that you don't run out of cash. Because when you run out of cash, then you will not be, for example, paying your staff. You won't have any money to pay your staff. Payroll will not get it. And then in the longer term, you need to be working on your budget for next fiscal year that makes significant, severe changes to get yourselves back on a good path. You have blown far past the time for easy decisions. You have blown far past the chance for small cuts. You've blown far past the time where you could make changes that would not be felt significantly by the citizens of Rocky Mount and by your employees. The changes that it's going to take, especially this late in the fiscal year, to not run out of money in July, will be large changes. This is not chipping away at a problem. You need a big shovel, maybe even a bulldozer. None of this chipping, far past that. You need to cut all of your discretionary spending. So I looked at, as an example, I looked at some of your recent board meeting agendas in preparing for this meeting, and I saw that you recently approved a contract I believe, renewing the contract for your federal lobbying services. And I didn't watch the video of the meeting, so I don't know what the discussion was, but these are the sorts of things that you will often hear boards saying, we can't afford not to do that. It will help us bring in money. You are so close to running out of cash, though, you can't afford to do that right now. You can't afford to do any of these optional things. The number of things that you can afford to do right now is very small. You're not going to solve this problem in the short term with revenue. Between now and the end of the fiscal year, there's not any way that you can increase your revenue enough to keep you from running out of money by July, August, June, somewhere in that time frame. You have to solve this problem by cutting expenses, and that will be hard. Now, as you, at the same time, on a parallel track, are working on your budget for next fiscal year, you do need to increase revenue. You need to fix this problem in the longer term on both sides. You have what I would call a structural budget deficit. And when I say a structural budget deficit, what I mean is you don't just have a one-time problem that's making expenses be greater than your revenues. The whole foundation and structure of your budget is out of alignment. The amount of revenue that you're bringing in and you're on trend to bring in does not support the amount of expenditures that you are on trend to spend. And you must make your debt service payments. And those need to be your top priority. Your debt service payments need to be a higher priority than not renting staff, for example, and not furloughing staff. The debt service has to be the top priority. The local government commission was created to keep units from going into bankruptcy and defaulting on their debt. I've been in this role as secretary for 9 months, and you are not going to default on your debt under my watch. That is not going to happen. I am not going to let that happen, and I don't need to let it. Some of you have asked about the local government commission coming in and taking over the town of Rocky Mount. I've had that question from multiple people in the room. We don't have any magic solutions. I don't have a secret cabinet of ways to balance the budget that you don't have. And you have something that not all of our local governments do have, which is a highly qualified finance officer. qualified staff, qualified town manager. Typically, when the local government commission has come in and taken over a local government, it has been because there's a lack of qualified staff. Across North Carolina, there's a real shortage of qualified finance officers. And so the towns that we have taken over, this is not a criticism of those towns in particular, there are not enough qualified finance officers to go around. The commission has stepped in and taken over the books and taken over the finances of a few local governments in the past. But typically, again, because there's been a lack of qualified staff. You don't have a lack of qualified staff. You have options. If the LGC steps in and takes over Rocky Mount's finances, and I will tell you, this is not an easy message to deliver to you, but if the LGC steps in and takes over the finances, it will be because there has been a failure of board leadership. There's been a failure in this. This is where you can solve the problem. You can do this. And if the LGC takes over, it won't be because your staff haven't come up with options or your staff haven't suggested different budget cuts. It will be because y'all haven't, as someone said earlier, rolled up your sleeves. There's not any reason that the LGC should need to take over in this particular case. There have been reasons in the past that made sense for the commission to take over. That this is not one that makes sense. We don't need to do this. You can do this. If you come up with ways, now you're going to be working and digging into your budget tomorrow. If you come up with ways to cut your budget and make changes, you get to make those decisions. You have the options right now. You're going to have to make a lot of hard decisions, but you will still be in control. The other option is that the LGC takes over your finances and then you're completely out of control. Any of the things that are sacred that you don't want to cut, that's politically sensitive, or I'm attached to that program, you lose your decision-making ability over those programs and services. And there's not any reason for it to come to that, because I've talked to several of you today and you can meet this challenge. I don't have any doubt that you can meet this challenge. See what other slides I have. That's pretty much it. That's it for the first part. That's it for the telling you what you need to do. I hope that this message is consistent with what you heard from your auditor, but someone said it well this morning, that the audit is looking back over fiscal 25, which is almost a year ago at this point. We're almost all the way through fiscal 26. And I know that the state auditor's report came out this morning and maybe took up some of the oxygen in the room with this question of what happened in the past and how did you get here? And I certainly am not dismissing that work at all. And for right now and for tomorrow, when you're digging in on your budget, you need to be looking at where are we going forward from here. We always want you looking at your internal controls, making sure that the conditions are not right for the same problems to be repeated. That's very important to do. And you need to figure out right now what you're going to do to keep that cash flow from getting into the red, and then to build up your fund balance over time. So kind of for the prepared remarks, but Sharon and Edmondson from the League of Municipalities and I are here to take questions. You're welcome to talk through some of your options. I know the different items that your staff have suggested to you or that have come up in discussions when I've talked to your staff have been things such as selling any assets that you have that aren't what we call pledged as collateral on your debt. So any assets that are free for you to sell that you're not using to bring in extra revenue. And that is one strategy that you can use to help keep yourselves from running out of cash. Reducing employee benefits is not easy, it's not fun, it's not comfortable, and it's probably something that you will need to do. We call furloughing employees is something that can help reduce your expenditures in the short term. Furlough is being a short-term temporary measure to help reduce your expenditures and keep things on track. I know you did a reduction in force earlier this year. Very hard thing for a governing board to do. You likely may need to do more of that. There's probably no option and no part of your expenses that you don't need to look at reducing. You need to look at your capital outlay. You need to figure out if there are any things you're spending capital funds on now that you can postpone the expenditures or not spend the money right now, except for the debt service payment, because I'm not gonna let y'all default on your debt, so that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
You're creative. You know your budget better than I know your budget, and you know Rocky Mount better than I know Rocky Mount. You're much more qualified to do this than I am to do this. You have good staff, you have good ideas, and the numbers are very bleak, but they're not unsolvable. Thanks. I'm happy to take questions, happy to talk through anything you want to talk through. I think you have quite a bit of time for us on the agenda. We don't have to fill it all, but happy to sort of get into the nitty gritty or talk at the higher level, whatever is the most helpful for you and how you use this time to help support your decision making that I think you're going through tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. I guess council, do y'all have any questions, for her while she's up there? And, Sharon, do you have a slide presentation as well?
Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Edmondson from the municipalities. Formerly of the LGC in the role that Denise has now. And, I will just second everything she said. This is up to the board at this point to make those hard decisions. The next few days, the next few months, probably even the next couple of years are not going to be fun. They're not going to be easy. Your staff's not gonna like it. Your citizens not gonna like it. But it's really up to you as a body, not an individual, as a body, to make the decision. Are you going to be the board that pulls this city back from the financial cliff? Or are you going to be the board that lets it fall over that cliff? And those are the decisions you have to make. Denise and I are not here to tell you exactly what to do, other than make sure those debt service payments get made. That is statutorily required, by the way. She's not just being hard nosed about that. And the way I look at this, you have really kind of three distinct categories of decisions. The first and most pressing are your immediate cash flow items. Right, like she said, it's cash flow analysis. These are estimates. All right, you're one bad water line break or one sewer pump failure away from these estimates being worse than this. Your revenue collections could be better than this. It could go the other way. But as a financial person, I'm always going to look on the negative side on that, because it's always great to have extra, but you have to prepare for not having enough. All right, so these are estimates. You run out of money in July. There's no way that you can generate revenue between now and July to fix it. So this is your short-term problem. You're going to have to cut enough that you don't go into negative in July. Then you have what I call an intermediate problem, which is how are you going to get through until you start collecting property taxes? Those typically start coming in September or October, with the majority of your collections being in November and December. Now, one option you might have there, and this is going to seem counterintuitive, but if you offer a discount for early payment on your property taxes, people will pay them early. So you will bump up your collections into September and October instead of November and December. Overall, you will collect probably a little less money if you don't change the tax rate, but it will even out the cash flow. Again, that's a decision this board is going to have to make. You have until the end of April to make that decision. So pretty short string on that one. Obviously, with your 26-27 budget, you've got a lot of decisions to make there. And there you do have more options on the revenue and the appropriation side. But I can't stress to you enough, just like Denise said, the here and now is going to have to all be on the expense side. There is no way you can generate enough revenue to get out of this in the next couple of months. I spent a little bit of time just kind of going over numbers, and I don't want to repeat anything that Tim talked about this morning, but between 2023 and 2025, and just remember, we don't have 26 numbers. All right, so I'm not sure how this is gonna go after 2025. But between 2023 and 2025, you spent down 71% of your savings. Imagine that in your own personal finances. If you're like me, you'd be freaking out if you had spent that kind of money. For 2025, all of your enterprise functions have negative cash flow, all your significant enterprise functions, electric, gas, water, sewer. They have negative cash flow, which means they are spending more cash than they are taking in. Why is that? I know Tim briefly touched on that this morning. I suspect it's a combination of things. Maybe rates aren't high enough, maybe you're not collecting enough, maybe you're spending too much. All of those things contribute to that. So that's another area that you're going to need to spend some time to figure that out. As Denise said, your budget is structurally out of balance because you relied on fund balance to balance that budget for each of the last 3 years. One of those years you actually didn't spend any, but the other 2, you took a major hit. So going forward, not only are you going to have to fill that gap that used to be filled by fund balance, you're going to have to add to it to start rebuilding your reserves. And again, this is difficult to do, but not impossible. But it's up to you as one body to make those decisions. On the revenue side of things, again, we talked about property tax. I will tell you that just looking at your overall revenues, just in the general fund, all of your tax revenues, sales tax, franchise, telecommunication, and property only account for about half of your revenue in the general fund. Out of those, the only one you control is property tax. The other 3 are pretty much decided for you. The other 50% of the revenue comes from grants, fees, registration fees, that sort of thing. That is way more under your control than sales tax, franchise tax, telecommunication tax. So there are some possibilities there that you could generate more revenue. But again, this is going to start in the 26-27 year. It's not going to help you now. So I'll close just by saying one more time, this is up to you. All right, you're the board that your legacy will be. Did you lead the city over the cliff or did you pull them back?
I want to thank you so much for coming in today and presenting. We're so happy to have an LGC. I'm new to the board, I'm new to this council, but I would love to say, it's a team effort. I'm on the team now and I'm 10 toes down to do whatever we need to do to save our city. The state auditor, he released this report today and he said, in his report, council members have allowed personal agendas and internal rivalries to dominate their decision-making rather than focusing on the long-term interests of the community. This dysfunction has hindered collaboration and accountability and led council members to neglect or avoid critical oversight functions. This lack of collaborative council leadership created a troubling cycle in which city managers was hired, operated with minimal accountability, and ultimately were dismissed from province roles, often receiving substantial severance payout. So I appreciate you giving it to us raw with no chaser, straight with no chaser. And I hope this is a wake-up call that we cannot continue as we've been continuing, doing business as usual, because history is going to have all of our faces on it if this city fails. So we have to make the tough decisions. It's all men on this board. We have to do what we got to do. No one's coming to save us but us. So I appreciate you giving that to us and our citizens that's hearing it for the first time. You started out that we're in dire situations, right? That we have a dire situation and the LGC do not want to come in, that we can do it. We can save this city. So I hope this board have heard you loud and clear and we do what we need to do to save our city.
You really don't want the commission to come in and take control of your finances. I have been a part of that in one of your neighboring towns, Princeville. Some of you may recall that one of the things we did in Princeville, because we believed it was the right decision, was we transferred ownership of their water sewer system to Edgecombe County. I still believe that was the right decision for that town. But it was something that the commission chose to do. The elected leaders did not make that decision. The commission did. And I'm not saying that that would happen in Rocky Mount, and I'm not saying it wouldn't. Because it's up to the commission to do what they believe is best in those situations.
I appreciate both of you coming and speaking to us today. This news is not news to me. This is something that's been going on for a while. At the last budget session in June of 25, I suggested we look at cutting expenses. And it was not really favorably looked at all. We got to look at it positive going forward. Pet projects, things we've done in the past, they're off the table. Totally off the table. Any commitments of funding that we can get out of, we got to get out of. Isn't that what you said?
That's right.
Right. So it's a new day. And I challenge each member of this council, like I challenge myself. We have got to peel the onion back. I've been saying that for a couple of years. We have got to peel that onion back and reduce wherever we can. And it starts with us working with the manager and his staff so that we can look at other operating expenses. Quite frankly, I don't know what they are right now. I don't know the breakdown. Capital outlay, they haven't given us what's the breakdown. What is it? So we have got to have the meat and potatoes, the details, so that we can do the very things that you want us to do, our citizens want us to do, and Tom Harris specifically wants to do. I'm committed to get this ship in the right direction. We have got to work hard. And I thank y'all again for your message, loud and clear.
I just want to make one correction. Council did receive the capital that was planned, and most of the capital that was planned has been frozen. And we do have further details to give you all for the upcoming planning project for the fiscal year 27, but council has received all those budget documents.
Well, let's remind ourselves, but we're still spending $4 million a month. If we can go over what those are, just as a reminder. Thank you, Manager.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to say also it's our responsibility to do hard things, not just on reduction of expenses, but also ensuring that our revenues are set at the right level of expectation. And we are a taxing authority. And while no one likes the idea of paying higher taxes, we get ourselves a disservice when every other municipality and the counties around us balance their budgets with tax revenues that were appropriate to their budget. And we went revenue neutral. So level of cuts to our budget also were impacted by the fact that we did not increase the tax rate as we should have. And so now we also are saying cut deeper, 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 but we're not, it's a two-handed effort, cut and revenue. And one of the things that our community has to deal with is what are the costs of operations of the city? What about costs of operations? And how do they balance making those hard decisions externally is what we're doing. So I think that's something when it's up for budget review, we gotta talk what we cut, and we gotta talk what we raise. From my perspective.
I mean, I completely agree with you, and I hope that I didn't misrepresent something that starting in 26, 27, you do have decisions to make on both sides of the equation. What I'm talking about for the immediate next 3 months is your only option is to cut.
Correct. For 3 months.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but there is no magic
Right.
bullet on July 1.
There
I mean,
is.
your cash is still going to be your cash.
That's right. And even when we increase the tax rate, it still doesn't kick into place until September, October, November.
Exactly.
So the discount possibility that you mentioned might be able to bring in more cash earlier.
It's a cash flow mechanism.
That's all it is. That's all it is. And it's temporary, right? Not to be endured forever.
Well, it's up to the board. You have to make that decision every year.
What,
One thing that you-
Go ahead, sorry.
One way that you might think about this, the decisions that you need to be making. When you look at this cash flow analysis, as I understand your agenda tomorrow, you'll be digging a bit more into numbers of specific changes that you can make in it. I were in your seat. What I would be wanting to see for every possible budget reduction that you think of would be right down here. What's the proposed first change? And then what's the impact in every month? Because you have to be managing cash flow, not just the budget. What's the second change? If you add that in, what's the impact in every month? Somebody said rebuild the onion, and it's sort of an interesting way to think about it, because what you need to do is layer on cut after cut after cut and dig back again, not chip away with a big shovel, but dig back out, and that way you would be able to see the impact, the bottom line every month. But keeping in mind, you don't just want to get to zero, you need to have cash on hand, so the goal is much more than zero. But as you start to think in your mind about what changes you might make to get things on a better track financially, it would probably be helpful for you to think about how you want to conceptualize that. How do you want to understand if you're making the right changes? How do you want to see information conveyed to you from your staff? What's the most effective way for you to look at it? What way makes sense to you? Do you want to ask for an update on these projections? How often? How often do you as a group want to see updated projections? How often do you as a group want to see budget to actuals as you get into the new fiscal year and start to get on a better track? Any more specific and clear you can be with your staff helps staff give you what they want to give you. And I can say that as someone who worked in a local government and worked as staff to an elected board. The clearer you can be about how you think and how you look at information, the better the easier you make it for your staff to give you what it is that you need. Go ahead.
And I would like to add one thing to that, as a body, not as individuals. So we don't want 7 different
Right.
ways. We need you all to decide what way works best for the governing body, and then staff
For sure.
will act accordingly.
So as a new member, I asked for a financial savability plan, stabilization plan. And I'm asking, you tell me if I'm on the right course or if I'm fully off, for our city manager and our staff to present us with 3 different plans outlining ways we can stabilize the city, along with a breakdown of savings associated with each. Because they know intimately the city better, because us as council members, as board, as the mayor may present something, but not thinking about the effect that it will have. So what I'm asking is our city manager, and I hope we have it at this retreat, to come up with some stabilization plans with the cost savings with each of those. If we was to cut this, if we was to add this, if we was to do this or that, what would that look like? And I'm asking you, when should we start doing this? Seeing the dire situation that we're in. I'm thinking we should have started yesterday, but from the LGC perspective, when should we start doing these cuts?
Can I offer a thought here? I think it just starts with, what are the core services that we have to offer to the city? What's the cost associated with that? And that becomes the base. Whatever's left over from that is what you try to put into either reserve funds or into other programs. But I mean, let's just start, what are the core services? I mean, trash pickup, police, fire, go through that list, figure out what that number is. Do we have that number? Do we produce that number?
What I was gonna say is what you just asked for, will be prepared for you by tomorrow. And that's what we'll talk about first thing tomorrow when we say council's priorities.
Thank you so much.
But I think it starts with those core services. That's just my thought. And then from there, we can build and discuss what we think is the better way to spend monies or not.
If I can comment that obviously it's what works for you and your staff. I think that what you're describing is what we often call zero-based budgeting. In other words, starting from zero and building it up. And that maybe the way you want to approach your 26-27 budget. I don't think you have the time to do that to solve your current cash prices.
Well,
Would be my guess.
I'm certainly not arguing with you, but it still comes down to what are those core services? And so I think we can identify based on our general ledger account within departments what those services are, the appropriate expense associated with it. And we still ought to be able to use that as a budget number to reduce, cash expenditures from this point forward. At a minimum, but we know this, we know that we want those services provided.
Well, I think,
Which is different than deferring capital expense, which was also what you're talking about.
I think Denise suggested something similar in that you only commit to what is mandatory at this time.
Right.
And that may be slightly different than what you think core services are, and that's okay. And again, that's the decision-making power of the board to make those decisions. And you get to do that instead of having the LGC do it.
Well, I'm thankful that Elton, that you brought in Cheryl Spotty, that worked with the LGC. And the reason I think we're not taking over already is because we have you here. So with her being here, can she look at our numbers and cut and do what the LGC would do if they were here? Without the political, the sacred cows that some of us will not cut. But with you being here, can you make those cuts and those suggestions for us? And hopefully that will be in the plan tomorrow for us to see.
I want to chime in first, and then Cheryl, please feel free to chime in. What the LGC has stated before and throughout this entire presentation is that, the staff will present a plan, but it'll be up to the governing body to actually make the final decision. Cheryl, as the finance director, cannot make that decision. She can make recommendations. My job is to make recommendations, but it'll be up to council to vote on those. I've also stated that we will have recommendations for you all tomorrow at the council priority session, which is actually our first session starting at 9 tomorrow. And then at that point, you all can give us direction on what you deem appropriate. We already have that planned. Again, none of it is exciting. None of it is going to make anyone happy from a public standpoint, from a staffing standpoint. But we do have a plan that we feel that can get us through the next couple of months. But as Sharon stated, even if we take immediate action, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. This is something that may take a couple of years for us to get back to where we really want to be. But we do feel like we'll be able to be stable by making some adjustments on the expenditure side. And then as we build the fiscal 27 budget, we can look at the revenue side as well. But there's some action that even on the revenue side, we can take now on the utility rate, because you can only change the tax rate through the budget process, but we can take immediate action on the utility side now.
Yeah. In response to that, well, let me make a correction. What I'm saying is in that plan, that stabilization plan, that she suggests and give us recommendations on what can be cut. And then we as the council body would have a final vote on that, I understand. But her giving us the recommendations, what the LGC, if they came in here, what would they put on the table to stabilize us?
Well, I just want to be clear, it'll be me making a recommendation based off of information from Cheryl, because by law, by the statute, I'm responsible. I'm considered the budget manager.
Well, thank you. Will you make it?
Make a comment. And we thank you for your presentation. Very well received. Things that you point out are things that we have been discussing. And some of us have governed this body in good time, prosperous time. Now we're in tough times. And Rocky Mountain is resilient, and you know that we're gonna come back to where we were, and even better. And, you know, just a point of privilege as a council member, and this is not saying anything derogatory from you, Mr. Robinson. We've been working in the trenches for a very long time. And the question that you're raising, that we have talked about this online, offline. And as a citizen, for some of the things that you discussing that we had in place, surely you benefited from, and so did others, to move this city forward, to rebuild our downtown, to create vision that Rocky Mountain is a place for us to, a good place to come work and play and to live. And I think that's what all of us want. I have confidence in Elton Daniel, in Cheryl, in Lisa, those positions that was lacking good quality leadership for a long time, which landed us in this position. Even the auditor did state that because of political difference that we had in this board about decision-making, we understand that. We have hashed it out. We have prayed it out. Some cussed it out. But we realize where we are. Not trying to throw anybody under the bus. The decision that was made, and we thought that it was good to make it at that time. Some of us disagree, but we know where we are. We know where we are, and we know where we need to be. And for those tough things that we got to do, we have to do it. Not the LGC coming here, because we have the capability in all of us through various positions that we have held in our political career and businesses that we have operated. We know what we have to do. And Elton said he's gonna bring the plan. I believe he's gonna bring the plan. Not just his plan, it's our plan. It's our plan. We don't want to send the message that we don't have a plan, because if we didn't have a plan at the time that you came and the discovery was made, the LGC would have been in here long way before now, because we would have been belly up. We are fighting our way through it. We see a light at the tunnel. So I'm just saying, this council, we bind together and we figure this out. We make those hard decisions where it's, you know, some disagree about the revenue neutral and this and that. We know what we gotta do. We heard it from you, we heard it from the state auditor, and we have heard it from each other. And so we gonna get the job done. Is that correct? I was in the church, I said, look at your neighbor. We're gonna get the job done, right? All right. Got one church from here. Praise the Lord. I ain't cussing today, I'm praying. Thank you. That was a sign again, thank you.
And I think I also agree with Councilman Knight that the auditor said we had personal differences. Thinking, like you said, everything's been hashed out. I think we know where we gotta go. Trust you, you trust each other to get out of this. And I believe, and they say, yeah, the faith of a mustard seed, and I feel I got it. I feel we got it, that we'll move forward, we're getting through it. A lot quicker than people think, but it's gonna take hard work, hard decisions, uncomfortable decisions, but we've been very comfortable in some situations, so we need to be uncomfortable. So, Ellen, I believe in you. Cheryl, I believe in you. Lisa, everybody, I believe in you. So I'm riding, my seatbelt's on. Let's ride it. Let's do it.
I want to go back to the question of when you need to be making these changes. Yesterday, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I would certainly want to see you adopt a budget amendment in March before the next LGC meeting, which is in April, ideally, right? A bit before the next meeting, because what I do not want is to be working on the agenda for the April meeting for the local government commission and adding an item to that agenda, discuss taking financial control of Rocky Mount. I really have no interest in having that on there, but if you have not made some budget changes in the next few weeks, then I need to see that to have confidence that you're not going to run out of cash and you're not gonna miss those debt service payments on your fire station, on your water and sewer bonds, on your bonds for the property installment financing for the property that you bought for economic development, on the convention center, on all of your debt. You, as I said, you have about $8.6 million due next year in various payments. And I would want to see budget changes adopted pretty immediately, along with an updated cash flow estimate to show me that you're going to be able to make those payments. Because in fact, my whole job is making sure you don't miss them.
And I'd like to echo what Denise just stated, over the last couple of weeks or a couple of months, that's exactly why I was trying to stress the importance of having a revised budget that almost got tabled at the last council meeting, but eventually got approved, because what that revised budget did was show some of the changes that we made over the last several months to get us to the point of where we are now. If you recall, during the mayor's statement, he stated that we had $30 million worth of expenditures that we cut for a 10-month period to get us to the end of the fiscal year. So staff was successful in doing that, but what the LGC staff is telling us today is that now that we've got to that point, we got to take a step 2 and make even deeper cuts. And then when we get through the budget process for fiscal year 27, we can look at the revenue side. But that's why it was so important for us to show the LGC that, hey, we see what our numbers are. We're monitoring on a month-to-month basis. That's actually on a daily basis. We've made those a cut. Council recognized that. They accepted the revised budget, but now we have to go deeper.
And I certainly agree with what Councilman Harris said earlier, but, and it's ironic that you spoke just a second ago. I was pressing my button as you got there and spoke, but I do think it sounds like, we're sitting here at 2:00 and we've got the rest of the day scheduled with these fine people, but it looks like we might be ending it a little early because their message was short, simple, and to the point. And the one thing that I'd like to see moving forward, and it's been difficult, and I know it's been difficult, especially we've got, what do we have, 4 audits going on? Or just completed 1 audit, or 2 audits, I guess, today. And I know it's been difficult, especially with the other issue of not having Ms. Spivey, not having much staff. But it is important for this board to get information. And I think if we can sit here and figure out what information we need moving forward with cash flow, which is dire right now, and we know that. In addition to any other reports, and hopefully get it with a dialogue with you to where it doesn't look too much. It's not too much effort with you directly or your staff, so you can continue with the day-to-day of where we're going. I think that would be important. And so I think we need to come together as a board and figure that out and agree. And I think it's been said, but I'll repeat it. So then we don't, each one of us send an email to the manager or to the finance director separately, asking for separate things, because I know that adds time. And then, but to their point, one thing that we have lacked for a long time is getting the information we need to be the numbers that we received in the past. I don't have full faith in. And I mean, when I say past, prior to, Ms. Spivey brought all this to our attention, we had no clue we were in the cash flow crisis that we're in until she had the wonderful opportunity to give us the news back in September. I lost track of that.
Well, when I presented the budget last year, I did state that we were below the 10%. I say that we had about
Well,
6.5.
even 10% is too low anyway.
Well, that's the point. In May, that we were below. And then we found out the cash position a couple months later, but that was a signal right there that the city was going in the wrong direction.
Correct. Which reinforces the fact that we've got to let all our, I think someone used the term sacred cows. They've got to go out the wind and, or go out with the wind. And we need to start today. I mean, I mean, the numbers are up there. So. So you can bring it tomorrow. Well, I think we need to ask for reports today. If you go ahead and in the roundtable, let's sit around this and figure this out. I would like to see us do that.
This is council meeting, so, staff will do, adhere to whatever request, but I will say, we are prepared to show, some of the things that we worked on over the last weeks, even over the weekend, tomorrow morning, but, council wants to have a discussion today. This is your meeting.
Well, you're correct, and I'm bringing it up because, again, we've got to come together as a group, as been said before, but also for anything to get done in this council, it takes the majority. And that's been drilled in my head since the day I was elected. So, that's why I'm asking for it.
Well, I would second that. I've been asking since December that we come together and, stop the hemorrhaging and bleeding. But I want to ask the LGC regarding safeguards. What safeguards does the LGC have in place to ensure municipalities do not take on more debt and worsen or already deteriorating financial position? I ask this because in the state audit today, he pointed out that the LGC have warned Rocky Mount for several years about its financial trajectory. And given those warnings, as a new council member, I just need to know how was the city able to take on additional debt with, Fire Station number 2 project that ultimately it cost the city $11.2 million. How did the LGC evaluate our financial conditions then, and, how was that borrowing, approved?
Sure, I can speak to that to some extent, because that financing took place before I joined the LGC. But for those of you that don't know, at a high level, state statutes require you to get permission from the LGC staff of the 9-member commission itself on certain debt financings to undertake, debt that's over a certain amount of time, debt that is over a certain dollar amount, these types of things. My understanding is that the discussion at the commission about whether or not to authorize the debt for the fire station was contentious. And as I understand, that debt almost did not pass the commission. I'm not really prepared right now to speak to what analysis the staff specifically did or didn't do at the time, but in general, there's a solid working relationship between sort of the two sides of the house within the division that I run. So one side of the house is the debt staff, and one side of the house is what we call the fiscal side, is the folks that are making sure you have your audit in and making sure you run out of fund balance. And anytime that comes before the commission, staff in both of those units have gotten together to discuss the particular financing request. Do we think that the local government is in good enough shape financially to afford it, that sort of thing. As I said, I understand that the approval of the fire station was controversial and maybe contested a bit, but ultimately did pass the commission. Another piece of debt that you have is, I believe, maybe around $15 million on some vacant land that you originally acquired, I believe, for a casino, and that now you're considering using for other alternate economic development projects. This is another financing or another project that took place before I joined the commission. My understanding of how that happened is that the town financed the debt or borrowed for just under the amount of time it would have required coming forward to get LGC approval. So if you had to get approval at 60 months, then you took out a 59-month financing so that you wouldn't have had to come before the LGC. So we certainly know that things like that do happen in local governments, and that's, towns have the authority to make decisions to structure their debt in that way. But if it needs to come before the commission, then certainly our staff are giving a solid look at your finances. And I think it's probably good that you're not coming for any debt right now.
Well, I just want to.
Yeah, some of you may have more
Well, I
comments to
just
add.
hit on
Please.
what these are frustration as an elected official. When we make decisions, it's based off information that's provided to us. And we trust that that information is accurate. We trust that that information, and especially when you hire some folks that are consultants, people have letters behind their names. They have the whole 9 yards. Because we're elected officials. And I'm not coming up with excuses, I'm coming up with the fact, when we based off the information provided. Whether it's the 336 lane that you're referring to, whether it's the fire station, we had professional people say what you can and cannot afford. Do the analysis of it. And I know ultimately the responsibility comes on this city council and the mayor. I get it. But we also have to depend on the information that's provided to us. And so at what point, where, help me understand, if someone says you can do it and it makes sense, where do you go from there?
If I might too, I just want to point out, we did go get 59%, 59-month financing, but we then turned it out for a much longer period of time and did go for the LGC. So I just want to point that
Yeah,
out. So
you're
while
right.
that did
You're
happen,
right.
but there's a,
Yep.
we didn't just ignore it.
No, noted, thanks. for
Yeah,
that.
we still got a problem.
Right,
We still got
where
that
you need to
problem,
be.
right? I understand.
This is where you need to be. But no, you're right.
Right, and I'm not trying to show burden on now either, I agree with the mayor.
No.
But, that is frustration on my part. With whether it's just like we got our, presentation from our yearly audit, or whether it's, the yearly budget that we go through, or whether it's when we get ready to incur debt, and we go through that whole process. You know, it's frustrating on that part, when you're providing information, and you've got to make a decision, trusting the information is accurate.
I will say to you, if you feel like you're in a situation where you hired a consultant or you had staff and you trusted their professional recommendations, and then you feel like things didn't end up like they said they were going to end up, you would certainly not be the only governing board to find yourself in that unfortunate situation. And it's tricky because on the one hand, you're not experts in everything, and that is why you hire staff, and that is why you bring in outside folks. And then still, at the end of the day, unfortunately, or fortunately, you're left with the responsibility. And so I hear your frustration, and I can understand that.
But
Thank you, ladies, for your, thank you, ladies, for your presentation, and for your time sharing with us today. Just to this board, this is just overall, commentary for each of us. But I think one of the most difficult parts, beyond making the hard decisions that we will have to make moving forward, as I spend time serving on, the Leagues Board and just throughout the state with a lot of our colleagues, a city of our size offers so much more than other cities, our size and relatively close. With that being said, I think most difficult, portion of this is going to be how we bring our citizens along, understanding that some of the things that were will not be. And it's going to be difficult to do. I mean, the decision making is going to be difficult, but having that conversation with people that have become accustomed to a certain municipality, and rather previous administration, rather that took place in I mean, it killed our reserves a lot faster than we would like, but I think we were trending in a way as far as what we offer and have to, and some of the things we have to offer because of how challenging of a city we live in and how promising and potential driven and based we are as a city. So it's challenging to lead a city of this size because you have to do so much to overcome. But at the same token, now find ourselves in a situation now where trajectory is going to have to change for our citizens that have become accustomed to a lot of great things that we offer. It's going to be one of the difficult things, that I'm just thinking as we're sitting here, that I know will be difficult for me is how we translate that to our citizens.
One thing I will offer, is it's all a balance, right? What you do, I mean, I'm an accountant, so I like things in balance. And what you do on one side has an effect on the other side. And I think it's up to you, the board, to be very transparent, how you communicate that to your citizens so that they understand that this group is not being targeted or this group's not being targeted, that everybody is sacrificing something to move the city into a better financial position. And then the other thing is that none of this is permanent. All right, and I've talked with Elton and Cheryl too about terminology, talking about suspending things, not eliminating. Now, you may decide you want to eliminate some things, and that's fine too, if you determine that something's not efficient and not a way that you want to spend your precious cash. Certainly, it's fine to make that decision to eliminate, but if it's a budget balancing measure, you know, it can be looked at as this is on hold until we're in a better place. And I think most people can understand that. They're having to balance their own budgets at home. You know, who knows how much gas is going to be next week? And you have to make adjustments. So I think they'll understand that. They might not be happy about it. In fact, I'm pretty sure they won't be. But I think the more open you are about what you're doing, the better people will understand. The second point I want to make, I meant to say this earlier, is even if the LGC were to step in, there is no magic pot of money in Raleigh that's available to them that is not available to you. All right, we don't have any sort of funding at the state level that would plug the hole in your budget. That's not allowed in the state. It's one of the reasons that we are looked at as the gold standard for local government finance. We don't have the ability to borrow for operations. It has to be for capital. So even if the commission were to step in, the same things would happen that you have the ability to do yourself. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Sharon, I have a question, with regard to, similar to the debt. I think you kind of reiterated, and I think it's understood amongst the council and staff that we definitely need to focus on our debt obligations. But outside of debt obligation, the city does have a few agreements with organizations, outside of agency funding that we have agreements in place to. They're not necessarily mandatory, but would you speak to agreements that we have? Because my understanding is that if you have an agreement in place, you want to honor those agreements. That's similar, even though it's not mandatory, but it's similar to a debt. Can you just speak to that? It's likely going to come up tomorrow, so I wanted to come up today while you guys are here.
Okay. Well, I think this is where your city attorney's gonna have to get involved as to how ironclad that contract is. Certainly, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're gonna get sued and you're gonna lose for breaking a contract. But at the same time, some of those can be pretty cash flow heavy. And I may be naive, but I think if you approach people with, here's where we are, and I've seen other towns do this, is why I'm suggesting it. Here's where we are, here's what we can do. Would you be willing to accept something lesser than what we've contracted for temporarily? And temporarily, maybe a couple of years. But again, I think the more open you can be with people about the fact that you are in this situation and you're trying to fix it. And Denise may tell you something completely different. I don't know.
And just for the record, he wasn't recognized earlier. Our city attorney is here, so he's hearing this.
So Denise, while you answer that question, can I ask you something in regards to debt as well? I know you say you want to make sure everyone get paid, but what options exist for us to restructure debt, stabilize financing before the, LGC would intervene as far as restructuring debt? I know in bankruptcy, what the manager was talking about, some of those obligations get renegotiated or goes away completely. So what options do we have to restructure our debt, our current debt?
Sure. Let me go back to the first question first, and don't let me forget to come back to yours. To the question about agreements that are in place, I'm not going to say anything different than Sharon. I'm just going to say that that's an attorney question. You may be able to work something out. You may be able to take it out of agreements. You may not be able to. And one other thing that I wanted to say that came to mind while Sharon was talking about that, for council members to know as you work on your budget cuts, is the one thing you may hear from staff is we can't cut this expense because it's grant funded and we already accepted the grant. So you may have some we call restricted revenue streams. You may have some money that's coming in that you're only allowed to spend on a certain thing. Just wanted to lay that groundwork because that is something that you may hear from your staff. For example, if you have federal funds for a certain purpose, you can't just bring them over here to pay your staff for something else. And just keep in mind that that is one of many constraints that you may run into. And finally, as for your question about how to restructure your debt, probably something, not probably, that is something where I would want to put you in touch with our debt staff who know much more about restructuring debt than I do. So I would be happy to connect the town with our debt staff if that's something that you're interested in looking into. It's something that maybe there is a possibility, but they are really folks whose whole expertise is municipal debt. And in fact, it's not much.
So I got a few things to say. Thank you, Dynamic Executive. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for working with our team the way that you all have from the very beginning, since we reached out to you. Appreciate it. I really want to go back to the core issue, as Mayor stated, and why we are where we are. You know. And I'm going to read from the state auditor's summary. It's the last page, next to the last paragraph. He said this hire, which was the hiring of a manager, which some of us objected to, but all of us voted for, which was voted unanimously by the city council, directly contributed to the overspending. That's where it started. That's just the fact. And then he says between August 2023 and August 2025, Rocky Mount's cash investment balance fell from approximately $100 million to just 21.8, a 78% decrease. That's in 2 years. You say that's what. At the same time, total annual purchases and other payments rose to more than $300 million. It says while Rocky Mount increased city employee compensation by 27% and capital purchases by 153%, its revenues decreased by 2%. So it's no mystery where the money went. It's not in sacred cows, whatever that means. The sacred cow was random employee increases, which everybody loves the people who work here. That's not the issue. The issue is that we didn't have the money to pay for what we did. Process was flawed, which some of us objected to vociferously. We made capital expenditures. Those were the sacred cows. These grant programs, wherever they were opportunities to build in places that were already broke. But that's not what broke our city. And what's going to fix our city is adjusting revenue and making sure that we are rightly managed and staffed, and that whatever capital expenditures have been made, and if you want to look at where those are, let's talk about where they are. Where are they? And what I would just say to all of us going forward is let's keep the main thing the main thing. It's the main thing. It's in employee expenditures, which we gotta have people to do our work. We're nothing if we don't have people. Well, who are the people? Where are they employed? What are they doing with the time that they're there? And are we doing a good job building a culture, not just around money, but around being fulfilled when you're at your job? That's what everybody else is doing. And every other place, it's not just about pure compensation, it's about what kind of environment we work in. And it's been very toxic. And I think that we got to own our toxicity too. If we want to work together, that doesn't mean I win, you lose. It means we find a way to everybody. So just want to say that main thing is capital expenditures. And employee payroll, not that it's.
And I finish up
Yes, sir.
that same vein.
Yes.
Again, our appreciation to you, for coming. But you stopped there, that its revenues decreased by 2%. Second paragraph is overspending driven by an unqualified demand. Being unqualified is when the fire station had to appear before the LGC. The manager and the finance director did not go. They sent the fire chief. Also, enabling the city council has caused tremendous financial damage. You are presented budgets and numbers with false projection. You ask the question, is this sustainable? First year, yes. Second year, maybe. Third year, we in trouble. If you ask the right questions, I give you the answers. So we know how we got here, and we know what we need to do. And again, we keep echoing this. The only new person we have is right here, and the mayor, Tom, Lige, DJ, myself, Mayor Pro Tem, all of us have stated that. And we hopefully on the same page. And hopefully you all and our citizens gonna be proud of us. Because we're not going over the cliff. We're going over the top of the mountain. And so again, I just want to say that. And sometimes if we would just be quiet and listen to some of the wisdom in the room, we wanted to ask those questions. It may not be pertinent to us. And again, let's thank the manager. We could have gone anywhere. Thank you, Shirley, Lisa, and all our staff in this room. We get it. We're gonna get the job done. Thank you.
That's great. Glad to hear it.
You will have a revised cash flow for your LGC, okay?
I'll hold you to that.
If not, I will work up one myself, hopefully, we will have it. Okay.
Thanks. Don't know that you need it, but I want to make sure you know that LGC is here to help you in your work. We are happy to answer questions. We've been answering questions from your staff and happy to, of course, stay as closely in touch with them as we need to, as y'all lead yourselves out of this. Please.
I do have one question, just in generality, and I'm looking for some free advice. And maybe to lead this year, do you have an expert that who knows the Munis system?
We have consultants.
So.
That work for us, that know Munis, yes. Well, it depends on the system, Munis system. You're talking about Tyler Munis, right?
I'm just talking about the Munis system.
Yeah, it's Tyler Munis.
Okay, thank you. Somebody asked me the other day about Tyler and I thought there was only Munis with Tyler and I found out there's more. So we don't have experience with Intune, so that's why I'm asking.
The reason why I asked, I think our budgeting system and our finance system, they really need to be looked at. We might have the modules in place, I don't know, but we really need some help. Miss Spivey and her team is just inundated. If we could have somebody kind of come in and help with our IT folks to take a look at, do we have the systems in place that we can really implement? I've been asking since August of 23. When we get a monthly report, I want to see actual monthly versus budget month. Year to date, actual versus year-to-date budget. We don't have, we don't have that capability. And so if you got somebody that can help us, maybe I'm going on down left on a different tangent.
You're not out in left field, the Munis can get that. Cheryl and I will talk offline and figure out the best way to approach
If
it.
you can help us with that, I think that will help generate information for us in a better format and hopefully a better time span as well. Thank you so much.
I also will throw in a plug for lead training. We have a variety of classes. We're starting up our foundational financial management class for elected officials at the end of this month. I know travel costs are off the table. That it's a short trip from here to Clayton, which is where the first class is. If anybody wants to do that at their own expense. We'll be offering that class, and this summer we also will be having free 1-hour webinars every week throughout summer.
Is that a class by the LGC or the League of Municipalities?
The one in Clayton is the League of Municipalities,
Okay,
and I will send that information to Eldon. You can share it with you.
as far as the leagues, to what Councilman Harris was saying, do they have staff or assistants, short term that can come on board? I know, Mr. Durham is here from the league. Or do LGC have any of those opportunities for us?
We don't have staff that would come on and be on staff on a short-term basis, if that's the sort of thing that you're asking about. But what we do have is a team of folks that your folks can call when they have questions to get assistance in that. But we have something called the coach team. And basically the entire fiscal section is there to answer questions and provide support. But in terms of bringing in excess capacity to help staff you up, we aren't staffed enough to have something like that for you, unfortunately.
How about the unit assistant list? Is Rocky Mount currently on that unit assistant list? And if not, what does it take to get on that list? And are we not on it because we have this 5-year here?
Can I ask you a question, Charles? I think what they said is that our staff is competent.
No, the question I was asking is in regards to what Mr. Harris was saying, as far as updating our system and getting some help regarding that.
But I guess again, that's a technology. Don't we have a CIT, don't we have a director of technology?
Yeah, we have a director of technology who can handle those requests, but additionally, Cheryl's staff, it wouldn't even require Cheryl, we can run those reports with the current system. What we don't have is actual budget software. That's something that we're exploring, but as far as our finance report, cash to actual from a month-to-month basis, we can easily run those reports.
Cash to actual, but not actual budget.
Well, we can do that in Munis.
But I guess what I'm saying, I think the conversation about LGC involvement in municipalities that are financially failing, as we are, most of those failures occurred because they had inadequate skill set ability on the governance group, and they had inadequate staffing. Our issue was at that time, we couldn't have been taken over 2.5 years ago because we had an inadequate management team who didn't know what they were doing. And then the governance part is us, not you. That's my issue. And that's the part, that's the challenge I heard. I heard the challenge was that we got to govern differently. And I think the offer was if we need to improve our skill sets, then they have training available to us. And my understanding is that they are saying they don't have anybody more competent than what we already have. Is that what I'm hearing? I don't think you have. Do you have lots of confidence in our leadership team? Our management team?
I do not. I have heard in the conversations that I have had with your staff, many good suggestions for how to adjust your budget and how to crisis head on. And as of yet, the failure has been a failure to grasp those suggestions and a failure of the governing board.
It's governance.
Yeah.
And what I heard when you led in the conversation was that we need to be postured to make hard decisions. And I heard the first challenge was in revenue expenditures. And then the second challenge in balancing revenue with expenditures as opposed to building out a sound economy, rebuilding a sound economy, long term. We got to live the long term, right? That's why I hear you saying. So.
We do have training in the league, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. No, go ahead.
The league has training and we have some online module training for elected officials, training for you to meet you at your level, to understand your financial responsibilities to your community. And then the webinars that Sharon mentioned are open to staff and they're open to governing board members. I will tell you, I personally took many of the 1 hour webinars last year and found them very helpful, by the way. I like the webinar series. I will be on them again this year. So there is training out there for you. There's training for your staff, but the point you're at right now is a point of needing to stop dancing around the edge of the decisions, stop talking about the need to make hard decisions, and actually make the hard decisions.
Thank you
And
so
there's
much.
not any amount of training that's going to get you to make hard decisions.
Can you give us a timeline or a deadline that we have to make these decisions by?
She already said.
Hold on, let me finish.
Well, I had finished actually.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, wait, the third part that I heard, and actually, Charles, you brought this up, was that, while the governance board, the holds the responsibility and accountability for making determining decisions, the operations of our government depends on the caliber of higher team members that we have. And it's higher team members who come to us with the plans and the options because they know operations better than we do. We take a look at it, we evaluate if it settles with our priority areas. We might expand it, we might reduce it, but ultimately we have to respond to a plan that's given to us. And then the third measure that I was going to speak to that Councilman Robertson made was building consumer confidence, because one of the things I keep hearing in council meetings, I know people get frustrated, but when people in the community they go, try this idea, try this. It's not that your ideas aren't good, they just aren't matched with what's happening in the environment that none of us really know about. And so one of the pieces I think that we got to figure out as a leadership team is how do we appropriately inform all of our constituents across the city and the employees, that we got this. We're working together to make it happen. We need your help in making it happen. But you should be able to have confidence in us because we're not doing the things that we did when this got offline. This got offline because we weren't listening to each other. We were camping out behind whatever our positions were. But we didn't have good team members. We didn't have good information. And we made bad decisions. Bad decisions were made. Because the team wasn't good. And I just want to be clear. We got a great team today. This is not the same team that drove this in the ditch. It's not the same team, so we can't act like everything coming out now can't be trusted. What couldn't be trusted is what happened 2 years ago. And some of us saw it, some of us didn't, but now we're there, we all see it now. We all came along at different stages and different things, but we're here. We're here. So what I heard was that we got to adopt an amended budget by the end of this month. I'm assuming that's our second council meeting. I'm assuming. Because.
Yeah, we have a meeting, I think it's March 23rd, and then the next one is early April.
And so that's prior to your next LGC meeting, right? Cause I don't know how y'all feel. I don't wanna be talking about being taken, or no city in North Carolina this size has ever been taken over. Why do we want to be the first one to start? That makes no sense when everybody up here is supposed to be educated. And we're supposed to have a top of the line leadership team that we pay good money for. We pay good. But we run a good business. We have a water, we supply our region with water. And it's a mistake to communicate to the public that we have people who don't know what they're doing. We have some of the top scientists in this area that are employed in our water management systems. We operate a power system. We had a snafu, which was a horrible one about billing, but it doesn't mean everybody's incompetent. Just means we had a problem to work through. And that's what I appeal to, is that we got to, the mayor said it, what's our core business? Where are they? Trash, recycling, stormwater, water, electric, and gas. And now, what's not on this page or any of these books is that Rocky Mountain does not have its own economy that's insulated. We're at war. Gas prices are going up, energy prices are going up. And to think that's not gonna happen, you're living in a vacuum somewhere, it ain't real. But I'm just saying, those costs cannot be absorbed now. We were able to, in times past, absorb energy costs, but we cannot do it today. And then, okay.
Ladies, thank you so much. I know the league held a meeting here last month and I was just, I hate to use solicit, but I would just encourage you both to meet with our event center staff on your way out so you can schedule some more meetings here, especially in this juncture where we are. But we're still open for business. Still grateful for you being here, not just today for a report, but we love to see you all come here and utilize our facility in our city. So hopefully y'all can carve out some time, if not today, in the near future, to meet with our event center staff to be able to schedule some upcoming bookings. Thank you.
I didn't know it sounded like a benediction.
Just regarding the schedule, so, staff's trying to take notes. When did you say the next, LGC meeting was again?
I hate to say it's April 1st, but no fooling, it's April 1st.
Okay, because our next, I did look on the calendar, our next council meeting is, April 23rd, March 23rd. But, if we have to schedule a special call meeting just to get this adopted, I just want to be realistic with staff time and trying to get this done. We'll try to make sure for sure that we get it to you before April 1st, but if we don't get it on April 23rd, just want to give us a little leeway. I keep saying April, March 23rd, we will have it to you before April 1st.
Just remind you, we put the agenda out a week ahead of time, and if you don't want to be on it, you
So we gotta
won't
go
want to be on
before.
it. We can talk offline about our schedule and the
Okay.
timing.
We got
Thanks.
to do it.
Well, I just wanted to make clear what I was saying about the urgency of the situation. And I wanted the LGC to just set that tone about how urgent the situation is, because since I've been on this council, I've been calling for special call meetings and for us to stop the hemorrhaging and bleeding. And I think today is a wake up call for us to know. So that's all I was asking you, like, when do we give us a deadline and a timeline? So as a council that we can come together and work and do what we have to do and make these tough and hard decisions.
I think you're gonna talk offline.
Okay,
Charles is March the 23rd,
March the 23rd,
2 weeks from today.
and we have. to
They
have a
need
plan
the
in
following
place.
day to comply with their 1 week heads up. Isn't that correct?
You would adopt something at your March 23rd, meeting, that would be exciting.
Yeah, I
If
just
it's
wanna-
good.
Yeah, I just want to say, answer that too, Charles, about the call to have this meeting. We didn't have the information. One of the mistakes we made as a council was opening up the discussion with the public about utilities, and we didn't even know what we were doing ourselves. And we had, when you first came aboard, we were in the midst of multiple audits. We didn't have hard balances. Reconciliations hadn't been completed. And to start talking about where to cut was premature. Now the audits are completed. We finally got the performance audit. The state auditor audit is completed. We asked Elton and Cheryl the very first times before you got seated, that we knew we had to form LGC. And we asked them up front in the blind, we said, you gotta have a plan to go to LGC. We shouldn't be waiting on them to give us anything. We should be proactive in designing and developing a plan that works and is real. And then our job at that point is to evaluate whether it fits and we can do it. So that's the process. So I'm just saying, yeah, we all wanted it yesterday, but now we got information to start working on. And so I'm assuming you have been waiting, you're not slow release. You're gonna have something ready to talk about tomorrow, right?
We had it. To your point, back in the fall, we presented a plan to the OGC. We met with Denise. I don't think Chairman aligned it, but Denise's staff, that got us to where we are now. And now that the audit is complete, we are developing a plan that gets us through the rest of it. Again, the plan is just a plan. We got to work on the implementation, but you're correct.
And process is important. Process is important. Where we got off track 2 years ago, we didn't hear the processes that were already adopted. Remember, we didn't start out in the hole. We started out with $115 million. Let's say that. Cash in the bank.
Until the Mayor Pro Tem changes or call it the next presenter, I do want to say, because I don't want us to get it twisted in the media, that the bleeding stop or the hemorrhaging is when we got a qualified manager, finance director, HR director. And I don't want the message to be sent out that we just got it when you got up here, because it's not true. And so, until Mayor Pro Tem tell us what's next on the agenda, we're gonna keep going around and around. You're gonna ask another question that, you know, we're gonna have to rebut. But that is not what happened. And so, Mayor Pro Tem, in your hands.
Councilman Walker.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Mayor Pro Tem, so as far as the process and our conversation tomorrow, after we look at the presentation of what you all present us, my pleasure, my pleasure that we would go into, I know we already have a closed session scheduled for economic development, but if deemed appropriate by, whatever mechanism for closed session we can, my pleasure would be that we go into closed session in order to have those real conversations about what you presented us, because I just know with the cameras or what, I've been up here a few years, but I don't want us getting lost in the cameras, the media, and the public when we've got some real decisions and conversations to make.
Well, budget related discussion will have to be open discussion, but when we get into the personnel discussion, that could be closed session.
Okay, gotcha. So that portion of the conversation is what we present, we can go into closed session.
Correct, but we do have Colin here. Colin, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we can go into closed session for personnel reasons, but as Elton said, the broader budget discussion, unless it touches on something that's specifically a closed session item, it's gonna be a.
Thank you.
So we'll take a recess to 3:15. And I just want to thank Denise and Sharon again for coming into town, making a presentation, great information. But also want to thank your staff that did not show today, because we've been in communication with them at the recent finance officers conference, as well as on Zoom calls. And we really appreciate it as well. Thank you. Just like.
We have to.
At the 3:15.
Didn't call, what's the deal?
I've been trying.